Bonjour. Did you ever try to crochet at all? My results for amigurumis weren't that bad. A friend asked me to crochet something for him. He sent me these inspirations and asked me if I could crochet his character. Her. She's a mage warrior. He sent me several drawings. He also sent me the inspirational pictures he used to create the armor. After studying his drawings, I simplified the design to make it easier to crochet. My plan was to make one piece for the body and the boots, and all the rest of the clothing would be separated attachments that could be added to the doll. He asked me realistic proportions for the doll. I drew the full doll on an A4 paper, trying to keep the proportions as per the human body. The head of the doll has been crocheted using the check from the amigurumi guide that I used. I thought that it would be easier to create the legs separately and then to attach them to the body. And afterwards, I tried to attach them to the body. I had to close the bottom of the body. You have to know that I am not really a professional for the crocheting stuff, so I just eyeballed everything and it was really, really bad at some point. I tried to keep track of everything I have been doing. There are few things more satisfactory than undoing a crochet mistake, except when you have a knot. And on this session I had 5 knots because the feeling inside the body was made of fabric scraps, which were fraying a lot. In order for the legs to be the same size, I took the half of the bottom of the body and I counted how many loops I had for each half. It enabled me to know how many loops I needed for this magic circle that I would be using for the upper part of each leg. This magic circle is the one that would then be stitched to the bottom of the body in order to attach the leg and the coccyx together. I should mention that I forgot to fill the first leg before it was almost too late, so please enjoy this very interesting take of me filling the second leg in time for it to be, well, not so complicated. And as you can see, there is only fabric in my stash for the filling and not fraying fabric this time. For the boots, I only used the basic change of color of the thread, and then I added the lapel separately. So I created a small stripe brown wool that I attached on the top of the boot. Let's stop here for this very beautiful moment where I started thinking, oh God, what am I doing? Considering that eyeballing the stuff while I was doing it wasn't working really well and that I was starting the feet, I thought that it would be nice to plan ahead. So this time I started trying to understand which knots I would be doing, which stitches I would be doing, how many, where. The plan was perfect. There was no way I could fail. However, it seems I am not made to follow any plan. After several attempts for each feet, I ended up eyeballing the feet again. I have no idea how I finally succeeded to have something pretty symmetrical on both legs. I kept eyeballing everything. And one of the consequences is that I did the right arm perfectly, but I had to put it on the left side of the body because it was better. The fact that I changed the arm from right to left was creating a weird shoulder discrepancy. One of the shoulders would have been a lot more developed than the other shoulder. So I ended up deciding that right arm initially prepared would stay on the right side, and then I would create the left one taking into account that the shoulders were different, and I had to start again. The top part of the hand has more volume than the lower part because of the knuckles. I tried to keep this into account while I was crocheting. Please tell me what you think about the results. For the horns, I used another YouTube video that I found randomly while searching for some guidance because I never been crocheting horns before. So I have been using this video, but not all the steps. My horns needed to be smooth, so I only did the cones, initial cone for the basic shape, and then I stitch this cone with the step 3 of the other YouTube video in order to have my own shape. I initially tried to create the cone from the top of the horn, but it was really hard to have something pointy doing that. So instead I started from the basics using a magic circle, and I think it was 6 loops. And then for each 3 ranks I removed 1 stitch in order to make it smaller and smaller with something kind of symmetrical. The body is finally ready. Now it's time to prepare the cloth. As you can see, the body is quite horrible like this, but hopefully the clothes will enable to hide all these mistakes and make something a lot more beautiful, which should look like the drawings that we have as an inspiration. The boots are already in place, so instead of starting directly with the armor, which will be using different wool that I am not used to for now, I decided to start with the decoration of the boots. Each boot has 2 leather straps on the side, which means 4 in total, but 2 of them are crocheted with right-handed crocheting technique and 2 of them are crocheted with left-handed crocheting technique, which means that they are looping in different directions. On the inspiration drawings, she has some golden highlights on the armor. I do not have any precise colored drawing of her boots, but I decided to keep the golden highlights in order to have some kind of unity with the rest. On the forearms is supposed to imitate the superimposition of plates of the armor. In order to create this triangular shape, I did a series of 1 half double crochet, 1 double crochet and 1 half double crochet on the middle of the rank. Then for the next rank, I kept crocheting in the back loop in order to avoid crocheting into this triangular shape. Even though the first try of planning did not go as smoothly as expected, I had to try again because I had this drawing that I needed to crochet on the skirt of the character, and it was not possible at all without having at least a rough plan of what I want. I started with a drawing that had to be done on the right bottom side of the skirt. However, I did mess up and I started doing the drawing on the bottom left side of the skirt, which would not have been a problem, except I did not take into account the fact that the blue wool was a lot thicker than the golden lame, I think it was lame, that I was using. So the result was disastrous. But in the end, it was so horrible, I had to remove everything and start again from scratch. And that time, even though I was using the same drawing as the guidance, I did take into account the discrepancy of thickness between the 2 threads, which means that for each 1 loop of my blue wool, I was using 2 loops of the golden lame. And with this, I reached the densities that I wanted, which enabled to have a result which was a lot more beautiful to see. No mage will leave the tower without their cape. Obviously, our character has a cape which is made of purple feathers. I initially wanted to crochet a truncated cone as a basic shape and then add a feather on top of it. But I kind of forgot that the character has shoulders, which means there are volume. It appeared that it was not working properly. I needed to add some intermediate increase loops in order to have the shape that was actually matching. Before wondering how to create the feathery effect, I decided to move to the decoration. On the top part, there are some vertical leather stripes. And on the bottom part of the cape, there is a golden highlight. The leather stripes are brown double crochets with extremities fastened to different ranks of the top of the cape. Unfortunately, there is no footage of the face. The hair is made from white wool brushed with a dog brush. On the drawing, she has one purple eye, which I believe is her magical eye, and the other has some unknown color. I chose blue. At first, it was the royal blue, but it was horrible, so I changed it 2 or 3 times until I found a color and shape that was actually pleasing me. I finished the doll only the last day before I had to mail it. I only had a few minutes left before I could mail it. The final shooting is very poor. I really do apologize for this. If you want more pictures, I can ask my friend if it's possible to have some. To match the inspirational drawings, I added a golden skull on the middle of the armor, which I have been creating based on this video. And I also created a weapon, which I think is a trident. As she is a mage, she has obviously a magic book. And to make it a little more interesting, I decided to create it as a Laporello, which is a book made of one single very long sheet of paper instead of several sheets that you can turn. She even had a leather sheath for her magic book. How cool is that? I love this character and I hope you like her as well. Please tell me what you think about this doll and if I should make more. As a quick recap, this project took me about 3 months because I spent a lot of time redoing things. I think the initial planning wasn't that bad, but I did not take into account the fact that I was doing this on my spare time, so I wasn't having the same tension of the threads while I was crocheting, which meant that symmetrical parts of the body, such as legs, were not symmetrical in the end, and I had to do them again and again and again. I learned how to create a crochet pattern and how to read crochet patterns. So I really enjoyed this part of the project because I had no idea how it worked before. I made it a lot more complicated than it had to be. Maybe the body could have been a lot more simpler. The realistic proportions I was aiming for were a lot too complicated maybe for a crochet doll. The inspiration dolls that my friend sent me from Benny Bab were a lot more simpler, and I think the end result is very, very cute. So it's not needed to try to have something with a lot of curves such as a human has, but maybe focusing on the fact that the doll should have a head, arms, legs, and then really spending time onto the clothing instead of the body itself. Thank you for watching. I recommend you to go have a look at Bunnybub Instagram, which is really cool. See you on next video and have a nice day.